Hello everyone, this is Sheila back with another tutorial. This time it's a large tutorial. I'm going to do a 46-inch buttoned-up cardigan, and this is the pattern that I'm going to use. Now I have done a swatch. This is Signet's Pato, or Pato, I don't know how you pronounce that, everyday double knit. And as I've never used this yarn before, I would have done a swatch anyway, but I needed to do a swatch, and the swatch was done on 4mm. I can get the size to show me. There. It's very hard to see the size on these needles. The Zing, the Pro Zing, you know, those ones with the silver tips. It's 4mm anyway I've done this on, and I've worked out that I'm working out over 2 inches. And I've worked out each of these little marks. That's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. That's as 10 stitches to 2 inches. So I'm working on 5 stitches to the inch. And when you measure it lengthways, you start your count from below the little dot there. So that's 4, 8, 12, 16. So it's either 15 or 16 lengthwise. It's hard to tell actually with the pattern, but that doesn't matter because you'll measure it as you're going along. So as I'm doing a 46, and the measurement I've got from the swatch, I want 23 inches for the back. That's what the actual measurement is going to be of the cardigan. It has to be 46 inches. So I've been cutting on some stitches here. I don't do one of those tail end cast-ons. I always leave a long end like this for sewing up. I'll get to the end of it. Yeah, that's my long end for the sew, but I'll wrap that up and fasten it up with a little pin or something. Get my needles round right. And I do a cable cast on. That's how I cast on everything that I do. So the cable cast on, when my phone clears, it's very blurry at the moment. Put the autofocus off. So as best I can. You go through the back of the whole stitch, the cable cast on. Like that. And so I'm going to cast on 115 stitches in that way. And then I'll knit 20 rows. And knit 1, purl 1, twisted rib. And I will show that when I get that far. So right, to do this pattern, you do need an even number of stitches. And I've used, these are 3¼ mm for to do the rib. And because the 5 stitches to the inch I've worked out is 115 stitches, but I need an even number, so I put 116 on here. And I'm going to knit and twisted rib, and I'm sure most of you will know how to do a twisted rib, but to start off, it's knit into the back of the knit stitch. So you start with a knit stitch, an ordinary purl stitch, knitted into the back of the knit stitch, ordinary purl, back of the knit, and that's all it is an ordinary purl and the back of the knit stitch, and your rib will have a twisted look like this. This is a little cardigan I've done, and you can see how the rib is twisted on there. And that's how the rib will look when it's knitted. Now I'll meet you at the end of that row. And that's my first row of the 1 by 1 twisted rib. I'm going to knit another 19 rows, and then I will be back to show how to start the pattern. So I've knitted 20 rows in rib and measure it at the right end of the tape measure. And as you can see, that's 2.5 inches, which was what I wanted. Anybody following this, do whatever length of rib you want, whether you want it shorter or longer, but I've done 2.5 inches, which is 20 rows. And now I'm going to knit 2 rows just plain stocking stitch before I start the actual pattern. And I've changed to 4mm needles. If I can find the size on here. It's hard to see on there. You can see that's where it says a 4mm on there. And you need 2 rows of stocking stitch before you start the, working the pattern. And as you all know what stocking stitch is, it's just 1 row knit and 1 row purl. And I will do those 2 rows and then come back with the start of the pattern. That's the knit row, and the second row is a purl row. And that is stocking stitch, 1 row knit and 1 row purl. And I'm just going to purl across this row. And I will be back when I come to the start of the next row. Now I'm on to the first pattern row. The pattern is actually 4 rows to the pattern, but you start off with knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, I'll loosen some wool off yet. Knit 2, purl 2, and you just repeat those stitches all the way across. Knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, until you get to the end. It doesn't matter what you finish with, whether you finish with knit 2 or purl 2, it doesn't matter, because the stitches work out. Even if it's purl 2 at the end, the next time is knit 2. So, and I will come back after I finish this row. So that's the first pattern row finished, and I've started with knit 2 and it's finished with purl 2. It depends how many stitches you have. If I had 2 more stitches, would have been knit 2, but it doesn't make any difference, because you have the same, the next pattern part will end with knit 2, so it's the same on either side, just 1 row difference. Now the next row is just purl all the way across, and that is every other row of the pattern is purl. That's all there is to that row, just purl all the way across. Now we're on to the third row of the pattern, and as you can see I started with knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2. Well, this time I'm starting with purl 2. So you have purl over the knit and then knit over the purl. Purl 2, knit 2. So there you can see it taking shape. So when you come to do the next pattern row, it'll be after there'll be a purl row after this, and then it'll be knit 2 and purl 2. And that's the way the pattern is. You just alternate those stitches from knit and purl to purl and knit all the way. And I will finish that row and come back. And there you have the second row pattern, the second pattern row, the actual third row. And now I'm going to do the fourth row of the pattern, which is another purl row. And this is the fourth and last row of the pattern. And everything after that is just a repeat of the last 4 rows. So it is just purl all the way across. Now I'll come back. So that is the finished 4 rows of the pattern. And that pattern is repeated all the way up. It's just the 4 rows, 1 row knit 2, purl 2, 1 row all purl, and then the next row purl 2, knit 2, and just repeat those rows all the way up. So if you are following along with this pattern, this was how your knitting should be looking now. This is how far I have got with the pattern. Now I'll be knitting up to 15 inches to the armholes. So when I get that far, I will show you the knitting, what it looks like then, and more information what has to be done from the armholes. But this is the pattern we're using at the moment. I've wrote it down. It's 46-inch open moss stitch buttoned up cardigan, 3.25 and 4mm needles. That's 5 stitches and 7.5 rows. That equals 1 inch in the open moss stitch pattern. And the back, using 325mm needles, I've cast on 116 stitches and knit 1 by 1 twisted rib for 20 rows. For my 20 rows measures 2.5 inches. So you need to do whatever, as you can see 20 inches is quite deep. So you do whatever number of rows you want, or whatever number of inches you want your rib to be in, and then change to 4mm needles. Then you knit 2 rows in stocking stitch and pattern from row 3, knit 2, purl 2, repeat to end of row. Row 4 is purl all the way across. The 5th row, instead of knit 2, purl 2, you're doing purl 2, knit 2, repeat to the end of the row. Row 6, purl. And these 4 rows form the pattern, and then you have to knit till the work measures 15 inches. And like I said, I will be back when I get to 15 inches and show you how to do the shaping. So that's this part 1 of this video. I will come back another time with part 2. That'll be from the armholes from part 2.